The past week has been an interesting one in the Gen 3 blockchain race. It was a story of stark technical capitulation, at least over the near term, by Ethereum, and of charting a course over smooth seas by Cardano. It turns out that Ethereum is much further from its goal than its supporters might have been hoping, and that in the long term, the base layer might only get more expensive to use. Meanwhile, Cardano dApps are unfurling their long awaited cells for the first time. Ready? Let's go. We're going to discuss all of the capitulation talk and sentiment coming out of Ethereum over the last week. And we're not talking about price here. We're talking about a technical capitulation on whether or not Ethereum can solve its problems in the near term. And it's looking like the answer we're getting is that they will not. They will not be able to do that in the near term, at least any kind of a reasonable near term that I would think about. We're also going to talk about all the information that came out of Charles' recent 3-hour plus Twitter space. I listened to the entire thing. Vitalik recently gave an interview, and what he said in that interview caused a little consternation. To help explain why this interview got everyone so riled up, I've acquired the CCTV footage from the camera on the building next door to their interview room. It's a little bit grainy. You can tell already that the footage is a little grainy, but we can kind of see into their interview room, and I think it'll sort of explain exactly why everybody's so riled up. So I'll just go ahead and play the CCTV footage.
Hey guys, Vitalik here, living my best life. How are you doing?
Hey Vitalik. Hey Vitalik. We're really excited you're here. We looked over your map, your development map, and it sounds like we're about 50% of the way done. That doesn't mean that it's going to take another 6 years to finish, since we've already taken 6 years. I mean, it's not going to take 6 years, right? And also, fees are going to go down, right? They're not going to go, I mean, they're going down.
Oh, yeah, I could totally see us finishing in 6 years. I could see that. That could happen. And as an added bonus, fees on the base layer in the long term are probably only going to go up. Fantastic, right, guys? Fantastic, right?
Credit to Paul K here for pointing out the before and after photos. Obviously, Vitalik still happy, still living his best Vitalik life. These two, less happy. Unfortunately, saying you could see something happening is not the same as saying it's going to happen. I could see myself becoming a trillionaire in the next 6 years. In fact, it's quite a lovely vision, but that doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. And it looks like the sentiment, the capitulation type sentiment coming out of the Ethereum ecosystem is not just limited to its slow development roadmap. Here's another clip from another interview making the rounds kind of simultaneously with that previous interview. In this interview, Vinay Gupta points to Solidity, the smart contract programming language of Ethereum, as the single greatest failure of Ethereum funding, and asks if anyone really likes using Solidity. I mean, Solidity's been around for years now, and he's asking if anybody even likes using Solidity. For his part, he says that his impression is that Solidity is basically a bag of broken glass. How's that when a smart contract programming language is being compared to a bag of broken glass? In juxtaposition to what's going on in Ethereum, it looks like Cardano is in for some smooth sailing. Sure, there's going to be massive congestion during this Sunday swap launch. And of course, the Cardano critics are going to make a really big deal out of it and try to convince everyone that that's somehow representative of the utmost capabilities of the Cardano blockchain. But we already know that there are some really serious network parameter improvements happening over the next 6 months. We've got the block size increasing, the memory units increasing. We've got SIPs 31 through 33, Some people are estimating that these might represent an order of magnitude improvement in the throughput of the network. I think in 6 months, we're going to be able to look back and it's going to seem like a completely different blockchain. We'll be in a completely different place. While that's just 6 months for us because all the hard work's already been done, and now it's just a matter of tweaking the network parameters, just slight network parameter optimization for because all the hard work's already been done. For Ethereum, they're looking at 6 more years just to get where they need to be. Speaking of where we're going, Charles recently returned from CES in Las Vegas, where apparently they have extremely intricately carved mammoth tusks, and he gave a 3+ hour AMA in a Twitter space. We're going to go through the high points. Charles pointed out that Bitcoin is a pricing mechanism for lack of faith in the legacy institutions globally. With Bitcoin, the rules are the rules, and you don't need to have trust in any institution. On stablecoins, Charles points out that it's hard to understand how stablecoins could be a security under the Howey test. We've covered the Howey test many times on this channel. I won't bore you with it now. While there are various schemes for lending or creating other yields with stablecoins, that might be a different story. So I think this makes sense. Stablecoins, hard to say how they could be a security under, sort of very fundamental analysis under the Howey test because they're stable, there's no return. But it's obvious to us if we've been observing DeFi that there are many, many schemes by which you can create a yield from stablecoins. On Samsung, he said they've had various conversations with Samsung over the years. It started with the wallet they put on Galaxy phones. IOHK wondered how digital identity could be added to that wallet. He mentioned the Veritri deal, but he said he's not aware of anything IOHK is doing with Samsung right now. He didn't even get a pre-brief on the Veritri deal, but there is no secret Samsung Cardano partnership. Obviously, that's a mystery solved. I love it when the baseless speculation comes true. In this case, single tear rolling down my cheek. No secret Samsung deal. Charles was asked about what he's most excited about in 2022. He said, seeing the dApp ecosystem evolve and working with them. In fact, he was in a meeting 2 days before this Twitter space with the DeFi Alliance, and they got 6 pages of notes on Plutus and development improvements. He says co-evolving the technology with partners like that is going to work great because they've already done all the research to know if there are limitations in place that can stop them, and there just aren't many. They already know. EUTXO is going to be very scalable under Hydra. Over the next year, we're going to see very nice month-by-month improvements in user experience with increase in block size, input endorsers, pipelining, other network optimizations, Mithril-based light wallets, super competitive network fees for microtransactions. It's going to be very satisfying to watch all this go down brick by brick. We're also going to see Cardano go from an open source project with a few custodians to a true open source consortium with thousands of participants. This is something Charles has been talking about a lot, and it sounds like he is kind of like relieved and looking forward to Cardano becoming a true open source project with many, many participants doing many things and not just the 3 traditional custodians. On light wallets, IOHK is building a light wallet. We already knew that from the Cardano Summit. They did a presentation on it. They've now got 20 people just working on this light wallet project. They hired a UI UX firm in London called Splendid that's been doing UI UX for 20 years. They're really sparing no expense, and they're very focused on things involving the dApp store and how dApp curation will work there. Charles really wants to get something with Mithril in beta in Q1 so they can get it into the community's hands for testing. Charles was asked about the biggest innovation of Cardano going into 2025 to 2030. His answer, unifying a community through a self-evolving ledger and a treasury and governance toward a common goal. Okay, maybe he didn't mention governance, but I just threw that in there. This is an interesting answer. I think most people would have been expecting Charles to cite some technical contribution as the biggest innovation that Cardano would be known for 2025 to 2030. No, he says it's Cardano's ability to unify the community toward a common goal through treasury and a self-evolving ledger. I think this is pretty interesting. I think it has a lot to do with the way Cardano was built, sort of with these things in mind from the start. If Cardano had never put in place a mechanism to create such an incredibly healthy treasury, any governance put in place would have not had the same amount of tooth to it. It wouldn't have been able to accomplish as much if that governance didn't command the powers of that treasury. Charles also suggested there should probably be an NFT alliance along with the DeFi alliance. He was also asked about Rogan. The saying was always Rogan after Gogan. Now we're post Gogan, so everyone's wondering when Charles is going to appear on Joe Rogan's podcast. He says they want to get to a great light wallet experience and a great consumer funnel, since it's kind of a one-shot thing with Rogan's monstrous audience, and they want to optimize that one shot. He also wants to sort of, before he goes on the show, optimize the things that he has control over that he thinks Rogan will be very interested in. Rogan's a hunter, so he's thinking about things like the bison ranch. Rogan's very interested in medicine, so he's also thinking of his biotech venture. And of course, the mycology stuff that Charles is interested in. I think if you have listened to Joe's podcast, you understand how that lines up with his interest wheelhouse. Charles was asked about Djed. He reminded us that the peg could be anything, the dollar, the euro, whatever. The important part is you could even go to a completely inflation neutral peg. While the first step is probably something like the dollar or the euro, long term, you want something that doesn't have 20% inflation per year. If Coty is successful with Djed, we could see 6 or 7 variations of Djed with different pegs and oracles to achieve different levels and types of stabilization. He thinks there's a good shot for Q1 for Coty's release of Djed, which is something I believe we've also heard from Shahaf Bar Geffen. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.